Hey, it's producer Mark at KCMO Talk Radio, and if you're an NFL or college football fan, check out my weekly sports betting podcast. Search College Pick'em Program or Sunday Sharps wherever you get your podcasts, and hit that subscribe button for my weekly picks, including the Chiefs, Mizzou, Kansas, and K-State. Now here's the Monday in the Morning podcast.
You know, timing is everything in life. Timing is everything in politics, and we will find out, hopefully by the end of the night, what exactly America wants for its future. Good morning. It's Election Day. It is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. The polls are open in Missouri. They open up at 7 o'clock in Kansas, and we've got you for the next 4 hours, John Anthony.
Well, we might know something in the wee hours of the morning, I hope.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I will stay up
anyway.
later tonight than I did last night for the Chiefs game. I will just leave it at that. I saved myself for tonight.
Right now it's 0-0 according to KCTV5's website for the presidential race.
I'm glad that they're on it at KCTV5.
They've got the live scoreboard.
Very well done. So we are putting a bow today, and really last night, on 9 years' worth of Donald Trump being the face of politics in this country. He has said that he's not running again in 4 years if he loses this election. Now, of course, he can always change his mind, but he's talking like a guy over the last couple of days who knows this is the end. And by the end, I mean the end of the campaign, not the end of him potentially being back in the White House. But he's talking like a guy, and you could see him last night in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. There was actually a hint of emotion to what Donald Trump was saying. You could see it in his body language that he was embracing this in a way that the guy usually doesn't, because he is such a machine. 3-4 rallies a day, crisscrossing the country. But I thought to myself, and I've said this before on this show, but America did not want and would not have come close to electing Donald Trump 15 years ago, 25 years ago, or 35 years ago. It took a very unique moment in time for somebody like Donald Trump to come along and have the success that he has had in American politics. And that's a 2016 win, a razor-thin 2020 loss, and we'll see how today plays out. The country was broken. The country was divided. The country could not stand its ruling class. They could not stand a ruling class that seemingly gave them less while asking for more. They could not stand a ruling class that used its media apparatus to lie to the American people on a regular basis. They could not stand a ruling class that willy-nilly sent their sons and daughters into what turned out to be, in hindsight, pointless, failed war operations. They couldn't put up with it anymore. They didn't want to put up with it anymore. And then along comes Donald Trump, who is not just one middle finger at the ruling class, but turns out to be the dual middle fingers at the ruling class. He came across at the perfect time in American politics. And that's a historical fact. It's not an opinion. That's a historical fact. And he came up through the rise of social media. He utilized social media in a way that no modern political figure had ever done. You combine where the country was 10 years ago with where the world was 10 years ago, with where technology was 10 years ago. And that's what led to Donald Trump becoming the figure that he's become. And that is not just obviously the biggest lightning rod in American politics that we've seen potentially ever, but frankly, the most famous and infamous person in modern world history. That is who Donald Trump is today as we sit here on Election Day. And Donald Trump, whether you love him or you can't stand him, represents an entire class of Americans who are fed up with the ruling class, who are fed up with a system that they believe has failed them and let them down and come up short of the expectations of the promises and greatness of America. And there's no doubt that there is, in some cases, not most cases, but in some cases, a victimization element to it. I don't deny that for a second. The world has changed tremendously over the last generation. But people still feel and believe they have a right to be heard. They have a right to be represented. And that's what Donald Trump represented for the last 10 years. And his haters would always say, well, this guy's a billionaire from New York. It didn't matter. They did not care. It wasn't about his background. It was about what he was, figuratively speaking, fighting against and what he was standing up for and what he gave up, I will add as well. You see, the people in the ruling class have no skill sets for the large part. They aren't people who necessarily are looked up to by many people who are of working class background. And many people who are just regular folks wonder how these individuals got there with their lack of skills. Then they look to Donald Trump and they see somebody who was more than willing to blow up the entire system and was willing to be that bull in the china shop. And yeah, did he do things that made you say, what is he tweeting that out for? What is he saying that for? Abso-freaking-lutely. But it didn't matter. Because too many people took Donald Trump literally and didn't take him seriously. Those who support Donald Trump take him seriously, but do not take him literally. And that has been the mistake that legacy media and Donald Trump haters have for too long continued to do. Take him literally and not take him seriously, when those who support him feel the exact opposite way. So as we go through today and we find out tonight, hopefully, who is going to be the next president of the United States, will Donald Trump win? Well, that will depend on whether or not the silent majority is more silent than ever. That will determine whether or not this country is heading on a trajectory that is more about getting back to free market principles while also utilizing Donald Trump's populist tendencies to build a large coalition and broad tent that will be the future of the Republican Party. He can do it. We might be talking all about that come tomorrow morning here on KCMO. I don't know. But I do know this much. America is still the greatest experiment in the history of mankind. There is no doubt in my mind about that, and I will feel that way tomorrow morning, win or lose. Obviously, I will have my preference, and I do have my preference in terms of what the next best step is for America as a country, as the leader of the free world. There's only one person who I believe is capable of doing that in this election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But no matter what happens today, it is likely to be the end of an era in American politics and something that we will never see again, I don't believe, in my lifetime. 913-408-7957 as we kick it off on an election day morning, John Anthony.
To your point, sir, there is work to be done.
Absolutely.
Regardless.
A lot of work to be done to get this thing back on track. We will hear from you if you are going to the polls on Election Day. They're open right now in Missouri. They open up at 7 a.m. in Kansas. We'll find out what those polling stations and locations look like. I know many of you in Missouri probably waited till today because those lines were so stinking long, it sounds like. So let us know what they look like today, what you're seeing as you go out there today, and also, of course, how you are feeling as we sit here on Election Day 2024 on 95.7 FM KCMO. We are streaming all morning long, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app, on your Google, and on your Alexa device. Coming up, the Trump team dropped some numbers, some early voting numbers yesterday that they seemed very optimistic by. But should they be? We'll get to it next on KCMO. Got some texts rolling in, some Facebook messages as well. Mike is at the Genealogy Center in Independence, and he's sending me a video showing long lines there, and this was sent before 6 a.m. So I've got all the pictures coming in on the text line as well, and I do understand that Johnson County has already opened up its doors to polling as well at 6 a.m. So while the state law says they got to be open by 7, it sounds like Johnson County polls are open already, 20 minutes in, and a steady line at the Arts and Heritage Center. I'm getting some information on that this morning as well as we kick it off on an Election Day morning on KCMO. Stephen's in Raymore. He's in Cass County. Stephen, what are you seeing down there, my man?
Well, I was in line at 5 a.m., and I would say there was 100 people, and it was raining on us the whole time, no cover, and everybody seemed in a good mood, honestly.
Now, how does that compare to maybe 4 years ago is a bad example given it was a COVID election, but have you ever seen a line like that?
I didn't vote 5 a.m., but yeah, I mean, the line when I left out of the building, which I was probably one of the first 10 people to vote, leaving the building, I'd say there was 400 or 500 people outside. It was huge.
Is that
I mean, it
right?
was just, it went all the way down the parking lot. There was no place left to park, which I don't know how they're going to figure that out. But it went all the way down the parking lot, and I'm outside right now, and it's pouring rain. So people I don't think they care. I just don't think they care. They're just wet and just standing out there.
Oh, man. Hey, you know what you got to do? Gosh, I don't know if even we're allowed to do this. If I could have planned better, I would have had you, Stephen, hand out Mundo in the Morning stickers or something like that, mugs or something to get people back on the show after they vote.
Yeah, I probably should. You probably should have done that. It's a good idea.
I didn't think the lines were going to be 500 people deep in Cass County at 6 a.m. I didn't have that on the bingo card.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen this many people when I walked out, but I mean, walking in at 5 a.m., there was probably 100, I would guess.
My goodness. Wow. All right. Well, hey, keep us posted there. Good job, Stephen. First 10 in the door. Well done, my man.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right. Dustin's in Blue Springs on KCMO. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I got there about 5:20, and there was probably about 30 people in front of me. When I walked out just a minute ago, there was probably 80 to 100 people in line, but I would say I'm a little shocked on how little there was compared to 2020 for me. When I went in the building, I was probably 15 in line in 2020. When I walked out, there was probably 500 people or so.
In 2020. So you're saying
2020.
Voting at the same time as 4 years ago, and you see less people.
I see less people. But they did change my location from last year to this year, or last time to this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was expecting the same amount, so I was like, man, I got to get there even earlier. But yeah, I thought there'd be more people outside today, but maybe that's because they changed the voting districts up a little bit, and there's not as many people that go to this one. But last time I was like, holy crap, it was probably at least a 3-hour wait when I got out.
Wow. Okay. All right, Dustin. Very good, my man. Thanks for the check-in.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Worth noting, Blue Springs was a location for Jackson County voters to go to vote early.
That is a good point, because that may mean then that people who were in that part of town went to go early vote because it was right in their backyard.
Yeah.
So that could be part of the equation there as well. So good footnote there, John Anthony, as we get it rolling on an Election Day Tuesday here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app all morning long. So here's this press release that was put out yesterday from the Trump campaign senior leadership team. And it was a memo with the subject, "The Democrat Turnout Problem Heading into Election Day." They note here, Election Day is on the horizon. Democrats are facing a massive turnout deficit. In every single battleground state, Donald Trump and Republicans are outperforming elections past in absentee ballots and early votes cast. As we dive deeper into the data, Democrats are facing a precipitous decline in urban turnout, according to their own data experts. And we're tracking an uptick in rural turnout. So here are some of the numbers, according to Democratic data expert Tom Bonnier with Target Smart. And this is internal information that somehow got leaked out of Democratic HQ. In Arizona, urban turnout is down 385,000 votes compared to this point in 2020. Female turnout is down 170,000 votes compared to 2020. Rural turnout is up 14,000 votes compared to 2020. Georgia, urban turnouts down 153,000. Female turnouts down 46,000. Rural turnout is up 172,000. I mean, the story goes on and on through Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Urban turnouts down 381,000. Female turnouts down 450,000. Meantime, you are seeing GOP turnout in much larger numbers in some of these swing states. The question remains this, and this is what nobody knows. Is the Republican Party or is the Donald Trump campaign cannibalizing its own voters and just shifting voters from Election Day voters to early voters the last couple of weeks? Or are these new voters? Are they crossover voters? Are they low propensity voters? They got out to vote early, and then today there's going to be this massive wave of Republicans on Election Day who will deliver Trump enough of these key swing states to be the next president. The trends are good, but nobody has that answer. And anyone who tells you they have that answer isn't being honest with you because there's really no way to know the answer. They may have some internal data suggesting it's more of a low propensity voter, that they got out to vote early. Maybe somebody who doesn't vote in a lot of elections or certainly skips midterms. It maybe hasn't even voted in prior presidential elections. All that is possible, but it still is speculating right now. It's still a guessing game as we sit here today and try to figure out what exactly is going to happen as we roll through this election day here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, the urban turnout being down as tremendously as it is, that's obviously a bad sign for Kamala Harris, because it's not just about Donald Trump doing better with certain minority groups, which he appears to be doing amongst blacks and Latinos and Asian Americans and Jewish Americans and Arab Americans as well. But it's just about the pure numbers game. Someone who doesn't go out and vote for Kamala Harris, if they showed up to vote for Joe Biden 4 years ago, that's technically a win for Donald Trump, right? So that's the thing that you look at right now and you say to yourself, okay, how big is Trump's momentum on Election Day going to be? Is it that massive red wave, or is it a red puddle because too many votes have come in early for him and he's still down? I don't know the answer, and nobody has the answer, but that is what today is ultimately going to be about. As we roll through the morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, there was an interesting bit of data that was shared yesterday by somebody on this radio station who is in the know, who's got some information that you don't want to miss. And we will share that with you here coming up on KCMO Talk Radio on an Election Day morning on 95.7 FM. We are streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app, and I'm going to put together a fun little social media reel for my entire day that you'll see on Instagram later tonight, Facebook, and X. We'll get to it all on KCMO. Yesterday on the Guy Benson Show, new afternoon drive host here on KCMO from 3 to 5, he had on Fox News special report anchor Bret Baier, who gave him this little tidbit with 1 day to go until Election Day. And this little kernel was about independent voters and where they're at right now going into Election Day. Here's Bret Baier last night on KCMO with Guy Benson.
There was an internal poll done recently from someone I trust who Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is independents only. Independents only in those states. Generic ballot, 45% Republican, 41% Democrat. The approval is upside down for Kamala Harris. It's like her approval is upside down with independents in those states.
Which were the 4 states again?
It's
Arizona, Michigan.
No. It's what did I say? Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Okay.
And this is from last week into this week. And listen, if independents are breaking that way,
And that's someone credible.
yes, very credible. And so, if they aren't breaking that way, then it goes entirely Trump's way because those pre-baked independents are suddenly the other way that
Yeah.
we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point from Bret Baier. So to simplify what he said there, he looked at internal polling that he trusted from somebody in the know, and it showed Kamala Harris underwater with independents in key swing states. And right now, one of the things that the Harris campaign is hanging its hat on is the notion that they will get independents to break towards them. But if the polling suggests she's underwater, meaning more people disapprove of the job she's doing than approve of the job that she's doing, what makes you think that independents are going to break her way in this election? Because typically, and all the polling suggests, the plurality of Americans believe that the country is on the wrong track. Well, Kamala Harris is the status quo for that. Kamala Harris is a continuation of Joe Biden. That's why she's tried so hard to act like she is not basically a continuation of Joe Biden. The line, the phrase that she has used down the stretch, "we won't go back." The insinuation there is that somehow Donald Trump's been in charge. And Donald Trump is the reason that a large part of America believes the country's on the wrong track. And that's just simply not true. It's because of the economic policies of the people in charge, which include Kamala Harris. It's because of the foreign policy decisions of the people in charge, which includes Kamala Harris. That is why the American people feel this way. But the goal that they have is to try to hoodwink the American public and the voter into this notion that we will not go back to Trump. Trump is why you don't feel good about the direction of the country. And if that polling from independents is accurate, as Brett Baird just shared, then they're not buying it. They don't believe what she's trying to sell here. But that's the case. That's the closing argument that the Harris team is trying to make. We won't go back. Because they know the numbers are not good when it comes to how people feel about the direction of America right now. So what do they have to do? They have to try to trick the American people into thinking that the reason they feel that way about America is because of Donald Trump. Even though anybody who hasn't been in a coma for the last 40 years realizes that Trump's not in the White House. And that the reason we are in the place we are in today when it comes to 4 years on inflation, when it comes to the failures overseas, right? Leave the stock market out of it. You have a jobs report on Friday that underwhelmed by 100,000. The only part of the economy growing is the government in large part, or government adjacent industries. People are like, what's going on here? You've got American-born workers off 800,000 jobs from the pre-pandemic numbers. I mean, these are not good numbers. Migrant workers are skyrocketing by the millions. American-born workers are in the toilet. So those trends set up very well for Donald Trump going into Election Day. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be enough. It just doesn't mean that. Because you do have a situation here where if women show up at a larger number than men, and they typically do, and if they're voting on one issue, like the abortion issue, even though that issue is not a federal issue anymore, it's done at the state level. We all know that. At least our listeners know that because you're smart. But if people understand or don't understand what the heck's going on when it comes to abortion, they may just be single voter issues. The question is, are there enough of them? And did they vote early and often enough to overcome what is likely to be a big surge for Donald Trump on Election Day? Judy's in Bethany at 6:40 on a Election Day Tuesday. What's up, Bethany? Judy and Bethany, excuse me. Bethany and Judy, Judy and Bethany, Bethany and Judy. It's all the same. What's up, Judy?
Okay, yesterday I had to go in and vote early because I was going to be out of town today. And I asked the head registrar, I said, how many people have voted? And she said 809. That was with my vote. And I said, how was it compared to 4 years ago? And she said, we didn't even have 800 voters 4 years ago.
Like total?
And total.
Okay.
Less than 800 voters 4 years ago.
At your polling location?
At the whole county.
In the whole county?
In the whole county. Less than 800 people in the whole county. And so when I was leaving, there were 5 people voting and 2 people walking in and asking for ballots for early voting.
Well, that's a good sign. That's a very good
That
sign.
is a very good sign. And Harrison County is a very red county.
Yeah.
So that's a very good sign.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bethany, you have a great day. Just kidding, Judy. Love you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you
have a
very
great
much.
day.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the numbers are going to have to be run up as well. What is the rural turnout like when it comes to not just Missouri and Kansas, obviously, but the key swing states that we are all watching, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and then go up to the Blue Wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And let's close out the night and close out the topic real quick in the Blue Wall, where I just want to play this clip for you. Mayor Amir Ghalib, Hamtramck, Michigan, Arab American mayor, only one in the country, who supported and endorsed Donald Trump. And after midnight last night, as Trump wrapped up his final sprint towards Election Day up in Michigan, Mayor Amir Ghalib said this.
I'm very proud that I endorsed President Trump and I broke the wall of fear among the Arab American and Muslim Americans, and I destroyed that wall of isolation and the wall of silence and the wall of hesitance among the Arab Americans. And now, today, we had a survey that was posted among the Arab Americans in the Metro Detroit, and it shows that President Trump is leading by 76%. And Harris earlier had 3%, and the rest was for others. So we are in a mission to end that disconnect between the minorities and the Republican Party and to make it the party of inclusion. And we are in a mission, which is the priority for us today, to send President Trump back to the White House.
That is the only Arab American mayor in the country, and he happens to be right there in the key swing state of Michigan. How big of a deal is it? I don't know. We'll find out late tonight. But for a voting bloc that has traditionally been very much a part of the Democratic coalition, to come out on behalf of Donald Trump, to maybe chip into some of those votes, even if a lot of those voters in that voting group just don't show up or maybe vote third party as some kind of protest. Remember, that makes a difference. That's a big deal. 913-408-7957. John's in Grain Valley. What's up, John?
Morning, Pete, on this election day. Little update. Yesterday I went to vote early. Pouring rain. 300 people plus in line waiting. So, of course, I put on my Mundo hat of common sense and said, John from Grain Valley, you're not doing this today. You're going to vote tomorrow. Yes, I said to myself, that's what Pete Mundo would do. So I pulled a Mundo, and I got there at 4:45 in line. I was about the 25th in line. I waited an hour and 15 minutes for an 8-minute event. When I walked out, there must have been close to 500 people in that line. That tells me something.
How does this compare to 4 years ago?
Well, I'll tell you, 4 years ago, I wasn't in this state.
Okay, gotcha. So you're new.
When I talked to other people who were in the line, they said they'd never seen anything like that. I said, oh, is this common? No, I've never seen anything like this. One guy said, I'm usually in and out, but I got to get here at 5 in the morning. So I think that says something in a large part. And I agree with you. What it says, I don't know. What it means, I don't know. But I have a gut feeling that I think a lot of people have really, to use the phrase, woken up, that this election is extremely important about where this country is going to go. And I've told people that I know, you have a rare thing to compare two presidencies side by side.
Yep.
To compare world events side by side. To compare your dining room table, living room table, kitchen room side by side. And to me, it's very clear. It has been clear.
Yep.
So,
John, that's good insight, my man. That is very good insight.
Really?
I appreciate you sharing it. There you go. 913-408-7957. So there was some politics out at Arrowhead Stadium last night. I want to make sure we tell you about that. Coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO. Well, the politics were in play last night at Arrowhead Stadium, where, of course, the Chiefs get a late win in overtime over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 30-24 to improve to 8-0 on the season. And before the game, I posted this on X at Pete Mundo. It was Randy Mahomes, the mother of Patrick Mahomes. And you will see this on my X account. Randy Mahomes in her suite before the game. She's got a Chiefs sweatshirt on, and she's got a Make America Great Again hat on, and she says this.
Make America great again. Let's do it.
Woo! There you go. Randy Mahomes dropping a Make America Great Again from the suite at Arrowhead before Monday Night Football gets underway between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. How about that from Randy Mahomes, John?
Well, I can't wait till tomorrow on The View when they tell her all the things she did wrong that she just doesn't realize.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And I had a couple of my buddies text me and say, well, it seems like Mahomes' career is over now. ESPN's going to call him a racist and everything else.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh, man. They can't have that now, right? Can't be doing that stuff. So Randy Mahomes drops that, and you can see it there. It's got tens of thousands of views on X right now. And then after the game, you had this, and I'm about to post this. Mark flagged this for me. I didn't see it till I woke up this morning, and Mark sent it my way because I was fast asleep by then. Chiefs long snapper James Winchester on the field after the game. Stadium's totally empty, and he's got a picture of himself on an empty field in an empty stadium with a MAGA hat on. Chiefs long snapper James Winchester. I will share that as well momentarily on X so you can see it there for yourself. Now, some of you will say, oh my goodness, this is getting political. You guys ragged on Kaepernick. Okay, one is the mother, but I don't think it should be understated. Where the mother of the most famous player in the NFL right now and the most successful player in the NFL right now, Randy Mahomes, feels like she can go out there and endorse Donald Trump and does not care. I do believe that's worth something, and that is notable in this political climate when a lot of people don't want to do it. They're afraid to do it. And she says, you know what? I don't care. I don't care one bit. I'm just doing it. I do think that's noteworthy. It wouldn't be if it was the other way around, right? Because, I mean, Hollywood, the media, everyone's lined up for Kamala Harris right now. And on the other side, you have more of a silent Donald Trump voter. Don't put out the yard signs. Don't really even necessarily tell some of their friends who they're going to be voting for. They may nod along and say, oh, yeah, no, I can't stand Donald Trump. Well, they get in the voting booth, and the one thing that is still private in this country, one of the few things that's still private in this country is who you vote for. And they may ultimately go out there and vote for Donald Trump. And James Winchester going on the field, and he's not in a uniform. He's in jeans and a black tee, going out there and taking a photo on an empty field with a MAGA hat on is not the same as Colin Kaepernick kneeling in a uniform for the entire world to see before a game. It's not the same. And if you claim that it is, if you're doing the Kaepernick thing, that's completely disingenuous, and deep down, I believe you've got to know it.
And it's not the Nick Bosa thing where he interrupted Mahomes' interview on the field after the game. He waited.
Yes.
So everybody's cleared out.
Yes, he didn't do the Nick Bosa, who a week ago with the San Francisco 49ers jumped in behind Brock Purdy during a post-game interview with a MAGA hat, which even that is just goofing around. I don't think that's comparable to Kaepernick either, who literally called the NFL a systemically racist institution that pays majority black players millions of dollars per year. It's just one of the most insane, ridiculous, and stupid arguments someone could ever make. So it's not even close to that on its surface. But this is completely harmless. But I'm sure there will be some melting down here in Kansas City media over this. When I posted the Randy Mahomes video last night, some people wrote back to me, Keith Olbermann, this is from Sean on X. Sean writes back, Keith Olbermann is about to call for Randy's arrest. And I just wrote back, yep, she's going straight to the gulag under Keith Olbermann. Someone else, Jerry, writes to me on X, oh boy, this is going to stir the pot. And I wrote back to Jerry, I'm sure the sports reporters are very offended. And trust me, they are. Sports reporters are worse in some cases than news reporters. They are as woke as they come. Whether it's the guys on radio, whether it's the TV reporters, whether it's the newspaper reporters, if they still exist, trust me, as somebody who used to be in sports media, they are woke, if not woker, than what you see in the majority of your news media, which is hard to accomplish, but that's what they are. That's who they are. Christy wrote on X, let's go Chiefs, love my team, and let's make America great again with a win. And I just wrote back to Christy, I said, win tonight and win tomorrow. The win came last night, 1 out of 2. We needed overtime to get it done. Hopefully, overtime is not needed to get this win done today.
A red Monday, a red Tuesday, and will there be a red Wednesday?
Let's go! Woo! There we go. Very well done. We'll see if there is a red Wednesday to celebrate this week. So here's the nightmare situation, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, ahead of today's election. And the scenario is this. The scenario is we end up waiting on one state to decide the election. With Democrats at 267 electoral votes, Republicans at 265 electoral votes. And we sit around and we wait on Nevada for days for somebody to get to 270. Nevada is 6 electoral votes. Nobody would be at 270 under this scenario. Now, how do we get to this scenario? Of the swing states, Donald Trump wins Arizona and Pennsylvania and Georgia. Kamala Harris wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and North Carolina. And that's how you end up with Harris at 267, Trump at 265, and the election hinging on Nevada and its 6 electoral votes. The other way this could happen is Trump winning Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, and Harris winning Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Basically, if Trump wins Pennsylvania in the blue wall, and then Harris and Trump split Georgia and North Carolina, they're both at 16 electoral votes. That's how you end up with this math relying on Nevada. Now, before I go any further, do I think this is a highly likely scenario? No, because I believe Georgia and North Carolina will break the same way. They are similar states, right, in that Sun Belt. I don't think one goes Trump and one goes Harris. I think we'll know pretty early in the night based on turnout for Election Day, and not just turnout, in red or blue parts, but just kind of what the enthusiasm is in Georgia and North Carolina. We'll know pretty early what these 2 states are set up to look like, and that will determine in many ways how the rest of the night goes. But if those 2 states were to split and then Trump picks off Pennsylvania and loses Michigan and Wisconsin while also winning Arizona, we are sitting here waiting on Nevada. And that is a disaster because Nevada law allows all mail ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted until 5 p.m. on Saturday. And mail ballots with an unclear or no postmark must be counted by Friday at 5 p.m. Those statutes were recently upheld this year despite multiple lawsuits. So I don't have any faith in Nevada. 4 years ago, Joe Biden was not declared the winner of Nevada's electoral votes until 4 days after the election. So it would just not be healthy for the country to be sitting around waiting on Nevada's 6 electoral votes to find out who the next president is going to be. That is a worst case scenario because then you're down to one state that doesn't do it, I think, in a way that's on the up and up. And it just will sow chaos, division, and frankly, no matter who wins it, you'll have the loser being like, what happened? Did we really lose? That will happen. No matter what happens today, whoever ends up losing, you will have people on the losing side who will claim that the election was stolen. I know there's been this kind of common theme that that'll only happen if Donald Trump loses. Please, that's not true. 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton still goes around saying Russia helped Donald Trump rig the 2016 election. They don't talk about it, but that is true. It's not good for America. It's not healthy for America. But unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case here. So I don't want it to come down to this. No matter what happens, I mean, obviously, I've got my preference in a big way today. Okay, everyone knows that. But I do hope that this thing is so decisive that no matter what, the loser can't go out there and say that, John.
Well, I'm with you there, but we did early voting bigly, and
yes.
Each state handles when they count those votes differently.
That's true.
And I've had a couple of people concerned they don't see their vote yet, but that's not abnormal. But I think we'll have some people who aren't going to be happy about when their vote finally does get counted.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
or they're
right.
going to be concerned until that happens.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be right now because everyone, some wait to count the early vote till after the polls close.
Correct.
Some do it very early in the process. It's
but just some take time.
Yes.
Maybe to the end of the week even.
Exactly. You are spot on with that. I'm glad you noted that as well because that is absolutely true. I got this on Facebook I want to share from a listener named Michael. Pete, been listening to your show. Please bring up the lack of early voting sites and availability on the Missouri side. I would have loved to have voted early in Lee's Summit, but there were only 3 sites and 2 had very limited availability. I heard the waits were 2 to 4 hours consistently. In comparison, in Johnson County, Kansas, there were 15 sites. I went to vote this morning at 6:15, and the line was into the parking lot. It's a shame that people can get in and out of a Chiefs game in minutes, but have to wait for hours to vote. Well, I don't know about that. He said, we moved here from a far west Chicago suburb and never had to wait more than 15 minutes. Well, that's because you're outside of Chicago where the dead people get the vote, and they all vote ahead of time. So
Lee Summit was the place that was only open on 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah, sending everybody in the county that wasn't in Kansas City, Missouri to their Blue Springs or Independence. Yeah.
You're right about that. Now, listen, that is something that has to be fixed in Jackson County, hopefully for the next time around. But you're right. It's not good. And that comes on Tammy Brown, who is the Jackson County Election Board Director, who did not prepare for the amount of early voters who were out there around Jackson County outside of KCMO limits. So it's a bad job by her.